I think I've stumbled onto something that science hasn't figured out yet, and I should be given $1,347.92 for discovering this. Borderline personality disorder. What makes us us? What gives us that special little something that is different from everybody else? Some people call it personality, other people call it the self, the ego. I don't know, I'm just throwing words out there. That thing inside you that lets you know that you're you, that without it, you could no longer be you. Your soul, your identity. I mean, there's all kinds of words we could use to try to describe it. People with BPD, borderline personality disorder, are lacking that part. As always, I must first say that I speak only for myself from my own point of view. You can take what I say to be gospel, or you can take it to all be a bunch of bull crap. Or you can take it with a grain of salt. I'll leave you with what they always told me in therapy. Take what you can use and leave the rest. It's really all you can do. I talk about borderline in a big whole as a group, but that does not mean that I am the definitive answer on borderline, that I have all the answers or any answers. I might not have any answers at all. For me, I know that I was missing that part for a very long time. I can't truly tell you if I have it today. I believe I do. Not having it, not knowing what it is, though, exactly, makes it hard to know if I have it or if I'm just faking it. I feel like I need to give you more explanation. For us to fully grasp what I'm talking about, we must go back in time, go back, way back when, to childhood. For me, growing up, I was not able to be a child. Well, I mean, I could have been. I was a child. But when you're a child, you're starting to learn who you are. You start to develop your personality, your sense of self. Normally, if you're in a normal household, the perfect time to discover who you are. When you're growing up, nobody's going to stop loving you. Nobody's going to abandon you, typically. So you get the opportunity to push boundaries, to see how far you can push people and still have them love you. And by being a nasty little crap, and by doing all of this, you learn that you're worth something. You get a sense of worth. Because no matter how bad you are and what you've done, your mom and dad, and your relatives, they're right there and they still love you and are kind to you. You might get scolded or whatever. It's not the end of the world. They don't abandon you. Typically, I'm talking about if you're in a normal family. When I was growing up, I was not able to do that. I didn't have the opportunity to push boundaries, to see what I could get away with and still be loved. I couldn't. The adults in my life were far too busy. Well, busy is not the right word. There was a lot of going on with the adults. I found myself having to tend to them instead of learning who I was and being a rotten little kid. I was dealing with a bunch of adult issues without any of the power of being an adult or any of the life experience of being an adult. My dad, I would have to calm him down and be his buddy. If I was around, he would be a little better, even though he wasn't that great when I was around, but he was worse if I wasn't there, and I knew this. I almost want to say that I overheard the adults talking one day, and it was brought up that my dad was worse when I wasn't home. I believe. I could confirm that. I could go and talk to my family. I have not confirmed it, but I'm thinking that's where I picked up that idea. Or I made it up. I could have just made it up. I had to always read my dad's mood, and I always had to be upbeat and happy, and that really, the son he imagined that he wanted a drinking buddy, and I wasn't old enough. I played the part, though. I got really good at playing the part, being his buddy and being able to calm him down a lot of times and try to stop the chaos as much as possible. When I wasn't busy with my dad, I was counseling my mother. I was being her therapist. I was an only child. She didn't get much help from her family. So it pretty much was me and my mom fighting for survival. And so we were very close and we discussed a lot of things openly. We've always had a very open relationship. Nothing's really been forbidden to talk about. Being that young, going through that, and I should have been being a child and having fun and pushing my boundaries and, marking things on walls and putting carpets on fire and putting them out with a gallon of milk and not telling anybody about it. I should have been doing those things. Instead, me and my mom would be having these late night sessions talking about how we were going to get away from my father and survive. Very adult stuff to deal with. My sense of self, who I was, my identity was completely formed around making sure being the drinking buddy for my dad, making sure that he didn't freak out, and being my mom's, I don't even know the right way to put it. Me and my mom needed each other for survival. We depended on each other. So my whole world was revolving around them. My mother finally did lose it and had a breakdown. That's for another video though. But after her breakdown, she was a very different person. She was stronger. She had the ability to just up and leave my dad, move us cross country to get away from him, and start this whole new life. She no longer needed me, really. Well, no, she didn't. She no longer needed me to be there to help her survive. We were no longer in this life or death struggle. Once we got away from my dad and moved across the country, everything settled down. I went from never knowing anything but the chaos and the back and forth to normalcy, maybe, or somewhat normalcy, to just calmness. I was finally able to be myself, be who I no longer had to be a counselor to my mother, no longer had to be a drinking buddy to my father. I could finally be myself. And once this opportunity to be myself came, I realized that I had no idea who that was. I mean, my whole life I'd been playing these parts. And they were very ingrained into me. My mother no longer needed me. We started to grow apart. Once we weren't in the life and death struggle, our closeness shifted a bit. It was like me and her, and like we were, I felt like I was one of the adults. But right after we get out of that life or death situation, I found out real quick, no, I'm just a child. And then suddenly I'm supposed to just be the kid, and it was just very different. It seemed like, we'd still talk and we still had a closeness, but what do you talk about after that? When you've gotten out of a life or death situation like that, the normal how's school going conversations just don't seem that enthralling. She started getting adult friends and going out. I was happy for her. I wasn't jealous. A lot of people would say I was jealous. I was not. I was just left without my friend. She started going out on dates and started hanging out with adult friends. I was very happy for her, and that was great. But it left me just not still knowing what I was doing. And then I started doing this pushing my boundaries thing. And I'd push the boundaries, but there were no boundaries. We had been through this life or death struggle thing together that she thought that I was pretty rock solid. I don't think she thought she had to worry about me because we made it through that. And I had performed just fine because I had the performance to do. I had a purpose. I was helping her and I was helping my dad. And I had a purpose. I knew who I was. Once that was gone, I hit my teenage years. I was no longer rock solid the way I was before. That's when I started the drugs, and I just started pushing my boundaries to see if I'd be noticed, if I was cared about. No matter what I did, it just didn't get noticed. I was too good at getting away with it. I couldn't get caught until I did. When I did eventually get caught for stuff, it was everything all at once. It was this huge, massive, just chaotic storm, which that is for another video as well. And this is videos about identity, who you are, sense of self. Borderlines act like children, and we do. We act like 5-year-olds. We throw temper tantrums. We definitely push the boundaries. We do all the things a child would do. If we were to do a scientific study of people with borderline, people without, I'm pretty sure these would be the findings. People without borderline were raised in pretty normal environments where their parents were solid enough, where the child didn't have to take care of the adults. So they were able to be children, and I bet they were ornery and stubborn and marking on walls, all those things that children do. Now, the borderline part of this, I'm sure, was probably in families like mine, where they had to be taking care of the adults and helping the adults, dealing with very adult situations where they weren't able to do that when they were younger, then probably hit teenage years or something and went, boo, off the scale, acting like a 5-year-old, because they never got the opportunity until they hit teenage years or whatever. And then that's when they start to try to develop their sense of self. Now, here's the problem with that. It's a big problem. A kid automatically is lovable. I know this because I don't like children. I don't. I don't like them. Little teeny tiny bodies with these big, weird-shaped heads. Nobody seems to notice the giant heads that children have. They're freaking huge. So you got these little body, big head things running around, bumping into stuff, not knowing how to clean up. And you got to change their pants. I mean, it's horrible. I don't understand why people like children. The reason why kids are so cute and adorable and have the big heads is because no one would put up with their shit if they were adults. Can you argue with that? Would you put up with the stuff that kids do if they're adults? No. Well, us borderlines never got that chance to do it in the loving stage. So now we do it when we're older. And well, when you're older, you lose that cuteness, that new person shine or whatever. Usually a parent will not abandon their child for acting out. But when you're an adult and you act out, people will abandon you. They'll stop loving you. They won't care about you. And it's your responsibility. When you're a child, it's just he's learning. Another thing, when a 5-year-old throws a temper tantrum, kicking and screaming, and they throw themselves to the ground and they're kicking and they're screaming and they're holding their breath and all of that, it's a lot easier to manage. The adult always has the power over a child. You can get control over that situation. Not really much that child's going to do other than tire themselves out and not get their way. If I, on the other hand, decide to throw myself to the ground, kicking and screaming, holding my breath, all of that, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get control over that situation. The more you try to, the more out of control I'll become. The damage is going to be significant. If I throw a temper tantrum, things get broken. People get hurt. There are actual consequences to my temper tantrums, unlike a child's. When you're a child and you're learning how to be yourself, it's fine. It's okay because you've got that new baby smell. But when you're older trying to discover who you are, then you're a piece of crap. Nobody likes you and they hate you and they abandon you. I just blew your freaking mind, didn't I? Your mind blown right now. You can tell me all about it in the comments section below. If you'd like to support this channel, which I know you do, check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. Like, share, subscribe, all that BS. Until next time, keep on keeping on.
You sure you won't have a sandwich?
Pardon?